Police repression against demonstrations throughout Peru have left at least 7 dead and more than 30 injured. Regional governments express concern on the situation. Also in Cuba, the National Assembly of People's Power held its 10th ordinary session with a focus on economic recovery and the budget plan for 2023. Also in Venezuela, the first round of peace talks between the Colombian government and the National Liberation Army concluded with several agreements. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada, and these are the news. According to data from the Ombudsman's office, police repression against demonstrations throughout Peru have left at least 7 dead and more than 30 injured. Thousands of demonstrators continue to gather outside the Peruvian Congress, demanding the release of former President Pedro Castillo and his reinstatement as the head of state. In downtown Lima, demonstrators took Bancay Avenue, from where they demanded the closure of the Congress, a call for general elections, and a constituent assembly. In this context, the President, Dina Boluarte, announced that she will send to the Congress a bill to hold early general elections in 2024, a move denounced by the former President Castillo. So far, 7 people have been confirmed dead, 6 in Andahuaylas and 1 in Arequipa. In Mexico, authorities issued a joint statement with the governments of Argentina, Bolivia, and Colombia to express their concern over Peru's political crisis following the impeachment and arrest of former President Pedro Castillo. The governments of Mexico, Argentina, Bolivia, and Colombia detailed that President Castillo was the victim of anti-democratic harassment from the day of this election in violation of Article 23 of the American Convention on Human Rights. The 4 governments call on all parties involved to prioritize the will of the citizens expressed at the ballot box. The governments also requested that authorities fully respect President Pedro Castillo's human rights. In Brazil, the electoral justice formalized Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva's triumph as president. The procedure officially authorizes him to take office as of January 2023. The electoral power held the ceremony in the city of Brasilia, where Lula da Silva was handed the credentials that accredit him as the winning candidate in the last presidential elections. This document will allow Lula da Silva and also Geraldo Alckmin to be sworn in as President and Vice President, respectively, before the National Congress on January the 1st. In Chile, a new survey revealed that 67% of the population consider that the country needs to make progress in the constituent process. According to the CADEM polling company, 59% prefer the mixed convention formula, based on a body made up of elected convention members and constitutional experts, while 37% opt for a convention totally elected by the citizens. Likewise, the data shows that 33% think that the proposed constitution should be drafted in a short period of no more than 6 months, while the rest consider that it should be extended for as long as necessary. Currently, leaders of the ruling and opposition parties are organizing periodic meetings to find a way to continue with the process, without reaching an agreement on the form and mechanisms. In Cuba, state and government agencies rendered an account of their performance today before the deputies during the second day of the 10th ordinary session of the National Assembly of People's Power. The day's program includes the accountability of the Ministry of Communications and the Office of the Comptroller General of the Republic. The deputies will be briefed by Prime Minister Manuel Marrero on measures to fight crime, corruption, and illegalities, as well as on the demographic situation of the country. As part of the legislative schedule, the deputies will submit to scrutiny the bills of the Comptroller General of the Republic and the system of superior control of public funds and administrative management. The approval of a legal regulation on expropriation for reasons of public utility or social interest is expected.
We're going to close this year with a $816 million increase in income from exports, which is very good news. $816 million more than we made in 2021.
The Cuban Minister of Economy and Planning, Alejandro Gil, highlighted the increase in the country's income due to exports.
As estimated according to the data we have, that is the official statistical information about 2022, the growth of the gross domestic product at constant prices is going to fluctuate near 2%.
The President of the National Assembly of People's Power of Cuba, Esteban Lasso, recalled that this process that began in 2018 had been marked by the tightening of the United States blockade.
Dear comrades, today we celebrate the last ordinary session of the National Assembly in its 9th legislature, which began in April 2018. It has been almost 5 years of hard work for all of us in a complex economic and political scenario. This legislature has been characterized by an intensification of the U.S. government blockade. Its effects have continued to hinder the development of the country and to threaten the well-being of our people.
The President of the National Assembly of the People's Power stated that the approval and ratification in referendum in 2019 of the current Constitution of Cuba proved the unity of people.
With the majority support of our population, we approved the current Constitution of the Republic, ratified in a referendum on February 24, 2019, a genuine expression of the democratic character of our system and a further demonstration of the unity of the people around our revolution. With the determination to make its precepts effective, this Assembly has carried out an intensive legislative work. After the proclamation of the Constitution, 30 laws have been issued and approved in this Assembly and 60 decree laws have been ratified.
Let's take a short break, but first, remember you can follow us on our TikTok account at TeleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news updates and more. Other stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. In Venezuela, the government of Colombia and the National Liberation Army, the ELN, conclude the first cycle of peace talks after 22 days of negotiations. The delegations meeting in Caracas since mid-November highlighted the atmosphere of respect and collaboration of the grantor countries of the dialogues. The parties were grateful for the participation of the people of Venezuela and its president, Nicolás Maduro Moros, as peace mediators. Among the agreements, the participants highlighted the return of the indigenous populations displaced by the conflict, as well as the release of 20 prisoners by the ELN. Talks between both sides will resume in January 2023. The ELN delegation chief negotiator, Pablo Beltran, expressed the talks with the government to establish humanitarian agreements that will reach Colombia's most affected regions in this armed conflict.
We were able to establish agreements that will reach the regions of Colombia. These are some first humanitarian agreements. Also, we want to take them to some prisons, to National Liberation Army political prisoners. And we also have done a very thorough work of preparing the agenda that we're going to follow in Mexico. That is a general agenda of the whole negotiation. We took the one from 2017, signed also here in Caracas. We have added updates, and it is with that one we're going to work in the coming cycle.
Pablo Beltran also expressed his gratitude to the Venezuelan government for serving as guarantor and providing support in the first cycle of the peace talks between the ELN and the Colombian government.
This first cycle has had practically all the support of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. We have not lacked anything, and we thank President Maduro, the government, General Martinez, a warrantor present here. We have indeed received a very diligent support.
During a working session with political, military, police, regional, municipal, and national government authorities, the President of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro Moros, announced that the borders of Venezuela and Colombia will be fully reopened on January the 1st in compliance with the agreement reached with the Colombian President Gustavo Petro.
I can proudly announce that we are going to open all the western Colombian-Venezuelan border for vehicle transit, motorcycles, trucks, cars, every vehicle. This is a New Year's present to all the people living all along the border we share with Colombia. We are making all preparations to fulfill our promise so we can honor the words we said to President Gustavo Petro that we were going to open the border on January the 1st, beginning the year 2023, so we can enjoy those free and functional borders.
The Venezuelan president called on the Bolivarian people to close the year with the economic stability.
That is why I call on the people of Venezuela, and I have called on the entire political and military high command to strive to ensure a year 2022 of economic stability, of economic happiness and growth for the country, to defeat the criminal dollar, to confront the criminal dollar with the decision and perseverance of the people and all the economic agents, every economic agent available, because here's my question to the businessman. What do you want? Do you want the times of economic instability to return, the times when economic instruments were used to harm the lives of the people? What do you businessmen want? What do the dealers want? Do you want the difficult times returned, or do you want better times to come? Times of stability, of peace, of winning, of respecting the people, times of eliminating disparities.
And we have more news coming up after a final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. The Italian General Confederation of Labor called for strikes throughout the country during the week in the absence of answers to its demands for a 5.0% cut in the so-called wage, the difference between what consumers pay and what producers receive after taxes. The Secretary General of this union, Maurizio Landini, pointed out that the first region to mobilize this Monday will be Calabria in the south of the country, and on Tuesday the strike will start in Sicily and Umbria. Landini explained that the need to continue the mobilizations became evident when, in the framework of a meeting held on December the 7th with the head of government, Giorgia Meloni, their demands were left unanswered. Other requests of the union referred to salary increases, as well as the repeal of the so-called Fornero law, in force since 2011, which dealt a heavy blow to pensioners' incomes and raised the retirement age to 67 years. The Russian government reports that it is holding talks with Turkey to prevent the launch of a military ground operation in Syria. In statements to the press, the Deputy Foreign Minister and the Special Kremlin Envoy for the Middle East, Mikhail Bondinov, said that the contacts continue as long as the Turkish ground operation on Syrian territory does not start. The diplomat confirmed that the exchanges have been successful despite Ankara's previous air operations against the central Kurdish bases. For his part, the Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan stated that he will maintain his position on the ground advance in Syria. At the same time, he welcomed the success of the air operation in Damascus. On Monday, UNICEF said that in Yemen, more than 11,000 children have been killed or maimed by explosives since the conflict escalated in 2015. Executive Director of UNICEF, Catherine Russell, who launched UNICEF's Humanitarian Action for Children appeal from Yemen last week, made a visit to a rehabilitation and prosthetic center in Aden to show the impact of the work of UNICEF on the children affected by the conflict. For years, the country's health system has been extremely fragile. Only 50% of health facilities are functional, leaving around 10 million children without adequate access to health care. However, UNICEF urgently requires $484.4 million to respond to the humanitarian crisis in Yemen in 2023 and the renewal of the truce for humanitarian access.
More needs to be done to protect children. All parties to the conflict must ensure that children are safeguarded. We cannot have situations like this where children are injured in the course of this war. It's devastating to them and it's devastating to the future of this country.
On the other hand, amid food insecurity, Yemenis in Amman receive emergency food rations. Almost 8 years after the escalation of the conflict, more than 23 million people of its 30 million rely on humanitarian aid for survival. These are figures that the United Nations has been able to verify. The actual numbers are likely to be much higher between the murdered people and those displaced by the conflict. Kenya's fifth president, William Ruto, paid homage to those who helped free Kenya from British colonialism nearly 6 decades ago as heroic defenders of the country's sovereignty. Ruto said independence had brought many achievements and much progress to the country. He also stated that the country was consistent in peacekeeping missions to ensure security and stability in Africa. Kenya has a consistent record of leadership to advance the cause of peace, cohesion, security, and stability in our region. Under various regional and continental frameworks and with the support of international partners, we are deploying our position as a regional anchor state for the benefit of our neighbors and the region, the head of state stated.
The sixth decade of our independence, we can proudly cite many achievements and impressive progress made through our own consistent efforts as evidence that our freedom struggle was neither an empty political adventure nor a reactionary born of idle resentment. We gather as a nation to commune with our forefathers who were long-suffering innocent victims of imperial plunder and colonial oppression, yet also heroic defenders of our inalienable sovereignty and valiant fighters of our freedom.
And just as the hearts of millions of fans live the emotions of the Qatar 2022 World Cup, TeleSUR joins this sporting event with From the Field, a show that brings news, analysis, reviews, and more to our audience. Don't miss it. Our show airs 1 p.m. local time in Caracas and 12 p.m. New York. Remember, From the Field, only on TeleSUR. We have come to the end of this news brief, but remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.